Okay, now on to our big story. For Earth Day last week, US President Joe Biden, he took over from Trump, if you've forgotten. He held an online global climate summit, and there were some big announcements.
US President Joe Biden has promised to slash his nation's greenhouse gas emissions in half by 2030 as world leaders gathered online overnight for the Earth Day summit.
The United States to cut its emissions by up to 52% by 2030, the European Union 55% by the same year, and the UK 78% by 2035.
On the Today Show, Michael Genovese summed up the summit like this.
There were more targets than an archery competition. That's how some are describing this morning's virtual climate change summit.
Yes, but for Australia, it was less like archery practice and more like a game of darts at the pub where we've had 12 schooners and can't even hit the dartboard.
Scott Morrison's been increasingly confident of reaching net zero emissions by 2050 without making a firm commitment.
China, India and Russia joined Australia in making no new commitments.
Scott Morrison making no promises.
Australia, no change.
Yes, Scott Morrison is making Australia look like the fuckboy of the global climate community. Look, babe, I'd really like to reduce my emissions with you right now, but I'm just not after any commitment. Yes, Morrison wouldn't set a date for Australia to reach zero net emissions, nor would he announce a date that he's going to set the date for us to reach zero net emissions, except to say maybe we'll know the date by the date of the next Global Climate Summit later in the year.
Australia is on the pathway to net zero. Our goal is to get there as soon as we possibly can. We are well on the way to meet and beat our Paris commitments, and we'll update our long-term emissions reduction strategy for Glasgow.
Yes, climate change is the most important and dangerous threat facing the entire planet, and Scott Morrison is sounding like a flaky backpacker on Kentucky. Yeah, can I let you know when we get to Glasgow? Is that all right? Yes, and speaking of targets, the Minister for Energy and Emissions Reductions, Angus Taylor, pointed out to Fran Kelly on Aaron Breakfast last week that it's easy to beat targets if you purposely keep them low and don't update them.
We always shoot to meet and beat our targets. That's exactly what we seek to do, but we deliver. And this is what counts. You know, you can talk all you like about this. People can talk all they like about this, wherever they like. But what counts at the end of the day is delivery. And
so set the bar low and then you over-deliver. Is that the style?
We don't set the bar low. We aim to meet and beat.
Yes, the easiest way to look ambitious and successful is to have very low ambitions. If your only ambition every day is to get out of bed and have a glass of water, hey presto, you're Mr. Successful. Good job, Angus. Also on target, Scott Morrison here sounds a bit like a neglectful husband who forgot to buy his wife a birthday present.
Scott Morrison recovered to argue achievements are more important than promises.
Future generations, my colleagues and excellencies, will thank us, not for what we have promised, but what we deliver.
Scott Morrison's like, yeah, I know I forgot your birthday present, but I remembered your birthday present the last 12 years in a row that I've known you. That's like over 99.99% of the time. Why don't you judge me on that instead of this year when I forgot? Scott Morrison also said it doesn't matter if we meet our targets, which he doesn't have for you right now, but will at some stage in the future. It's how we meet our targets.
For Australia, it is not a question of if or even by when for net zero, but importantly, how. And that's why we're so focused on the how. Because if you don't know how, you'll never know when.
If you don't know how, you'll never know when. What the hell is this, ScoMo? Is this a dodgy tourism slogan from your days at Tourism Australia you've just recycled on us like you had Lara Bingle on a beach being like, if you don't know how, you'll never know when? I mean, again, your own child wouldn't be allowed to get away with this kind of response. When are you going to clean your room, Scotty? Well, the when is not important, it's the how. Without the how, there is no when. Shut up and clean your room or you're grounded. In terms of the mysterious how of how to meet and beat these low targets, Scott Morrison is promising to use something called technology.
Australia, it is not a question of if or even by when for net zero, but importantly how. That is why we're investing in priority new technology solutions.
The answer is technology, not taxes. I'll be getting there by technology, not taxes.
Ah, yes, because this meeting proved that technology is always reliable.
President Biden's virtual climate summit,
the Prime Minister of Australia,
looked like a tech wreck.
Mr. Prime Minister, I'm not sure we're hearing you.
Australia's muted message to the Global Climate Summit, not what world leaders want to hear.
Mr. Prime Minister, I'm not sure we're hearing you.
The world watching, but not hearing. Glitches eventually unglitched.
Geez, good thing we're not trying to generate electricity via Zoom meetings. No, the technology that Morrison couldn't get enough of talking about was not solar or wind, where, you know, the energy is literally free from the skies, but hydrogen.
In Australia, our ambition is to produce the cheapest green hydrogen in the world at $2 per kilogram Australian. Mr. President, in the United States, you have the Silicon Valley. Here in Australia, we are creating our own hydrogen valleys.
Great, I can't wait for Hydrogen Valley's essential workers to be sleeping in vans because they're priced out of real estate because only hydrogen billionaires can afford to live in Hydrogen Valley. I was wondering where Morrison's sudden fascination with hydrogen had come from, and then I remembered that his mate, mining billionaire Andrew Twiggy Forrest, basically did an entire infomercial on it on the ABC in his Boyer lecture.
The solution is hydrogen. Hydrogen is the most common element in existence. In fact, the universe is 75% by mass. Hydrogen will never run out of it. To catalyse a global solution to climate change by rapidly increasing the supply of green hydrogen. It was which company would have the resilience to take the risk, to truly test green hydrogen at global industrial scale.
Man, that guy really loves hydrogen. That scene reminded me of Tom Cruise playing a pickup artist motivational speaker Frank T.J. Mackey in Magnolia.
Respect the hydrogen and tame the industrial scale.
Fun fact, I have no idea if that joke makes any sense whatsoever, but who cares, I'm tired. Yes, Scott Morrison loves mining billionaire Twiggy Forrest so much that he even gave him, and a bunch of other companies that donate to the Liberal Party, a good shout out during his climate summit speech.
Our journey to net zero is being led by world-class pioneering Australian companies like Fortescue, led by Dr. Andrew Forrest, Visy, BHP, Rio Tinto, AGL, and so many more.
Yeah, is it just me, or is giving a shout out to mining companies at a climate change conference a bit like thanking beer companies at an AA meeting? Yeah, thanks to them, we wouldn't be as screwed up as we are today. All right, so back to Twiggy Forrest, who seems to know an awful lot about hydrogen. Tell us, Twiggy, how do we make it?
It's also the simplest. To make it, you just run electricity through water.
Okay, so we can use electricity to make hydrogen. Now, Scott Morrison, what can we make with the hydrogen?
It can be used through the catalytic process that I was seeing earlier this week to drive the turbines that currently are fired by coal-fired power stations.
Okay, hang on, what the hell? So you're saying we use electricity to make hydrogen to make electricity? I'm sorry, but how is this convoluted human centipede of energy production better than shining the sun on solar panels again? Now, I'm not a scientist, but isn't this a bit like saying that to simplify the sandwich making process, you're just going to make the sandwiches out of other sandwiches? Yes, it's my new invention, the sandwich sandwich. We've cut down on all the inefficiencies by making the sandwich out of 100% other sandwiches. And as for hydrogen being a clean energy, well, Angus Taylor got caught out again by Fran Kelly on Aaron Breakfast.
A lot of people have been asking me here on this program, is it green hydrogen or hydrogen made with fossil fuels?
It's clean hydrogen.
What's that mean?
That's the point. It's clean hydrogen.
So it's not made with fossil fuels?
Let's not declare war on industries.
I'm not declaring war. I'm asking you, is it made with fossil fuels or made with renewable energy?
The point that many make when they're asking that question is we can't possibly make anything from fossil fuels. Well, you know what? If it's zero emissions, it's fine. That's the point. It's got to be clean.
Okay, so it will be made with fossil fuels, and how do we make it zero emissions?
It will be made with anything that allows us to reduce emissions. There's blue hydrogen that can be done with zero emissions.
Yes, blue hydrogen is made by burning a fossil fuel, natural gas, which can only be zero emissions if you use carbon capture. You know carbon capture, that unproven pie-in-the-sky technology conservatives have been trying to hype up as the solution to all our problems since, well, George W. Bush in 2001.
We're making great progress through technology, but have not yet developed cost-effective ways to capture carbon emissions at their source. Although there's some promising work that is being done.
All right, so Scott Morrison is all in on hydrogen because, you know, only Greens voters and hippies like windmills and solar panels. What else can we use hydrogen for?
I mean, hydrogen can be used to drive vehicles. I mean, up there in the Pilbara at the moment, they're putting him in the mining trucks.
Yes, let's use hydrogen in vehicles. I mean, it was working well up until the 1930s when that Hindenburg thing happened.
First in the flank, get it started. All the humanity and all the passengers speeding around it.
Hey, fun fact, Oh the Humanity is also what we'll be saying 50 years from now when the last hectare of trees catches fire. Anyways, at least Scott Morrison definitely tries to appear more committed to climate action than previous Conservative coalition prime ministers, and that's probably because he realises that if he doesn't, he could lose the votes of higher income, higher educated city voters.
And we saw it at the last election with, for example, the campaign that was waged against former Prime Minister Tony Abbott in the seat of Warringah by the independent candidate Zali Steggall, who won that seat on a platform of climate action. There is this sentiment within inner city seats that are held by the Liberals that they need to be doing more.
So, of course, you'll never guess who Scott Morrison attacked last week. Those inner city people.
And he took aim at inner city elites.
We're not going to achieve net zero in the cafes, dinner parties and wine bars of our inner cities.
Hey, idiot. Not sure you've realised this, but net zero in Australia, no matter when or how we ever get there, will be largely thanks to these inner city people you seem to hate. They're the ones who are investing in electric vehicles and solar panels. They're the ones catching public transport and riding bicycles, buying green energy and carbon neutralising their flight superannuation and other investments. And it won't be at all thanks to you current mob in government who refuse to set strong binding targets or implement strong policies to lower business or industrial emissions. And when it comes to concerns of voters over global warming and the environment, well, you're like,
I'm not sure we're hearing you.
Newsfighters, Australia's funniest news summary podcast.